Hello, everyone. Ryan Scott here again. I'm the lead columnist for D3Hoops.com. And with me today is Brad Fischer, the head women's basketball coach at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. Brad, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Ryan. Pleasure for sure.
High expectations coming into this year. Ranked pretty far up there. Do you enjoy having the high ranking at the beginning of the year, or you don't like the target on your back?
I think the best part about being ranked high is you had a good year to lead to that more than anything. I'm not sure. I mean, I feel like we've been successful enough where we've always had a decent sized target. We're definitely not the third best team in the country right now from the coach's eyes for sure. So that part I think is feels a little meaningless. But I also am proud to have a program what people think could be that good, which has taken a lot of time to build and try to get to that point.
And yeah, I think consistency is one of the big things that, especially in the preseason, the voters look at the fact that you guys have been in the tournament year after year after year
Yeah.
for a really long time and winning games. What has it meant for you to be able to build this foundation and put this program together that is reliable?
I mean, I think when I started, the hope was to get to the NCAA tournament and have an occasional run because doing it every year seems like a bigger task than you want to think about. So now that it's become, and maybe it's because we've done it, but the consistency has become more important to me even than the peaks, I guess. Like obviously going to the Final Four was a huge deal. I'm probably more proud of going to seven Sweet 16s and winning 20 games every year and just always every senior class is left on a 20-win season or an NCAA tournament or both. And I think that consistency has become something I've become more proud of over what a single team is capable of, but also just in my performance review, it's play every game with stakes from 1 through 25. Does every game we play going to matter? Do we have a chance to win the conference and play for an at-large? And NPI probably helps uh, qualify that a little bit easier and prove that it matters. But I think for 13 straight years, every game we've played has had some sort of meaning on an outcome. And I think I'm really proud of that and what our players have done to create that.
So coming into the year, have two starters to replace. You essentially were playing seven players, almost starters minutes last year, so it's kind of an easy plug and play, but it's not quite so easy, right? What have been the growing pains of the new team, the new look team, even though you've got a lot of experienced players coming back?
The biggest growing pain is it's just not the same. And I think we went to Greece not long after our season, so we didn't really have the same type of break, and we kind of rolled right into more games. And I think some of the returners want it to just flow from Roanoke to game one. And we've got a whole new team, people in whole new roles. Their roles maybe some haven't changed a ton. People that have come off the bench that now are starting, maybe getting a few more minutes. But we've got people trying to plug those other spots that haven't been counted on to do big things that we haven't had to figure out what group works together. So I think there was a little bit of, well, we just kind of want to keep it rolling, and you're starting fresh, and you've got other teams that have completely reloaded and changed what they do that come at you different now. And with 30 games played and against different types of teams last year, there's more weaknesses exposed if you watch film and find Final Four, Elite Eight caliber teams and the way they guarded you and how Smith held us to 47 points or whatever. So I think there's a lot of other factors that came in with having a long year that I'm not sure our players fully or our coaches even fully appreciated. And the target is definitely bigger, but starting fresh, but wanting that feeling of you're building off the last season is it's kind of two competing emotions there.
One of the unique scenarios, Sammy Byer gets named a preseason All-American before she's even started a game for you.
Yeah.
Kind of a unique situation where she was
Yeah.
kind of the sixth player coming off the bench, but obviously playing just like a starter. What is that transition like, and how have you seen her grow and change moving into a sort of new role?
Yeah, I mean, and she was new to us last year. She was only a sophomore in college. As a freshman at Division One, she'd only played in a handful of games. So she was really inexperienced last year as a college player. And regardless of level, especially last year, I think our Division Three women's basketball was 5 years, 6 years seniors, like
Right.
grown women playing against, and she's a 19-year-old. And But part of coming off the bench is you're not quite as high on the scouting report. You don't have quite as much responsibility, and we've seen an increase in responsibility for her because she had a great year. People are way more aware of her, have watched more film. So she's having to learn right off the bat. I thought Chicago and Carroll did a really good job guarding her. We also played Iowa State and Michigan Tech in a scrimmage, so she was a focus for them too. So she's found out here the first 4 games what it's like to be a focus, and when you don't have an All-American center underneath the basket taking some space, and you don't have the same 3-point shooting maybe on the perimeter that you did. Things just change, and it's just another example of it's a different team, and she'll grow into it. And she is no question will be one of the best players in the country before her career's over. But there's still a big step to take for someone like you said that came off the bench and now has to try to run what's is supposed to be a really good team.
So I mentioned this interview is going along with one with the Carthage men that are
Yeah.
part of this piece. And like them, I look down your roster and I just noticed way down the bench, junior, 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 senior, junior, you have a you know plethora of really experienced players to be able to get in there. What is it like to try and balance the rotation and make sure you're getting the right minutes for all these players who've worked so hard for you and earned the playing time?
Yeah, incredibly difficult. I think that's probably my biggest stressor. Even winning the first 2 games in the weekend against what I think are going to be 2 teams that compete for an NCAA tournament spot is trying to figure out how we keep our team getting better. We've got 8 seniors and 5 juniors that have invested a lot in our program that want to pay off the upper class years of their career and trying to figure out, like I said before, what groups work, but also some people that I haven't necessarily had in clutch situations and how they're going to respond to that and when the right time is to give them that opportunity and how we get them at the right level of confidence and trust and all those things. And it's so fun to practice with that group because they know what
Yeah.
we're doing. They know what the expectations are. They can teach the freshmen what that's supposed to look like. But once you get to game day, there's a hunger from all those players to pay off that investment, and nobody's more aware of it than I am, and trying to balance what it takes to win the game and bring them along and give them the opportunities that I think they've earned and deserve. It's a fine line. Luckily, I've recruited really selfless players, and even those that aren't getting what I think I'm sure they want. They're incredible teammates and great supporters of our program and our team. And so they're great to coach. Their coach just stresses a lot about trying to give them what I know they deserve and also what our team deserves.
Yeah, and you mentioned a couple times those first 2 games. Carroll and Chicago are not lightweights by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
Really good teams. You're able to pull out the wins, but looking at the box score, not the kind of numbers necessarily that are like Final Four worthy. I'm sure as a coach, there's
No.
a lot to work on. What went really well? Obviously, you got the wins against good teams, but what are the places that your team has to work on to get better?
Yeah, I felt like people underestimated both of those teams a little bit just because they weren't ranked. And I think Carroll's got one of the best players in the country. Their center is, I don't know that we've had to guard a better inside out post player during my time here. I mean, I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but and Chicago was tough, physical, big, like, but we took care of the ball. And we averaged 8.5 turnovers over 2 games, forced 25 against Chicago. But we're still trying to figure out where we're going to get our stuff around the basket from, who's going to rebound for us, how we're going to space the floor different this year with different people. And I think we felt the target a little bit the first weekend when you play unranked teams and you're ranked third in a poll. You get that we're going to give you our best and we have nothing to lose mentality. And there's a lot of security and nothing to lose. And I think our players had a little bit of that. We have something to lose worry, even though we just got started. And I think they were both great games for us. I mean, as a coach, I don't know that I've ever had more time and score scenarios for over the course of a month. But in
Yeah.
Chicago's game alone, up 3 or down 3 with 30 seconds, up 3 with 10 seconds, down 1 with 20 seconds. Like every set play and every special situation you practice, we got put on display first weekend. So it was a really good weekend for us to play 2 really good teams and we got fortunate to come away with wins. But obviously it worked out well, and now we have two good wins in the bank to move forward with, and know that we have a ton that we can get better at.
Well, sure. And it's nice to have those actual situations when they get to the end of practice. You're like, Coach, why are we doing this again? You can say, remember, we've already
Yeah,
faced this.
yeah, no, we had pull from it right off the bat.
Yeah. You have been a Wyatt guy through and through, right?
Yeah,
Degrees from cross, and we'll excuse the couple of years at Parkside, right? That's not Wyatt,
yep,
but it's in the system.
yep.
What has it kind of meant, and what maybe communicate to people who don't know what WIAC means, not just to the schools in the community for Wisconsin, what the culture is there around the league.
Yeah, it's actually the Parkside years taught me how special the WIAC was, if I'm being honest. Like as an undergrad, and trying to pick a school for college, like you knew the eight schools, nine at the time was Superior, but you knew that those were bigger than I think other states view their Division III schools. And you knew that if you didn't want to go to Madison and that wasn't what how you were going to end up, that those were great options. And I mean, I grew up 30 minutes from Stevens Point, so I would go over to Pointer games on the men's side, in the late 90s, mid 90s, and you would see Bo Ryan, you would see Jack Bennett. I mean, Jack Bennett coached against me in high school. Like everybody knew all these people. And then all state players and all conference players from your league were going somewhere in the league. So there was never a time where the WIAC wasn't a big deal in Wisconsin. So when I left lacrosse the first time and went to Parkside, and I found out how I felt little people cared about Division II, and as maybe that's wrong to say, and there's places like Drury and Grand Valley State, Northern Michigan, there's places that care deeply about their place. But in Wisconsin, if we win a game somewhere, my friends in Eau Claire know about it. My friends from lacrosse know about it. Like you're just so aware of what's happening around the state, and all sports. People know what's going on in football. They know what's going on in the basketballs, baseball, and softball. Like my friends know what the softball teams are doing just because they've got kids from their high school playing or their daughter's friends are playing. And it's just so interwoven with alums and connections that when I came back to the league, and the first time we went to the tournament my second year, the amount of random people that I hadn't seen in years that showed up because they've paid attention, and now I happen to be the coach here. It's special. And we know when we recruit, if a kid's got a Division II offer and we call them, that we can get a conversation and we can probably get a campus visit, and we at least have a fighting chance to talk about why this might be a better option for you than going 6 hours from home, even though you're going to get some money. So it's a special place to be, and it's a special league to be in, and I'm just super proud. Obviously, being successful and it's been nice, but just being part of it it's just different.
I kind of explain to people in Wisconsin, it's almost like an extension of the way high school sports work in a lot of places, right? Where everyone
Yeah,
kind of knows the league and who's around and what's going on. And in Wisconsin,
yeah,
it just kind of extends to that WIAC, because so many of the players stay home, right? Like
yeah.
you've got local kids in many cases that have played against each other or with each other for, since they were 10 or 12 years old.
Yeah, and we're not talking 7 degrees of separation, we're talking one or two. Everybody's got someone on another team that they're taking a picture with after the game, or their parents know each other, or they meet up, and yeah, it's that web. And then it's the next class you recruit. If they don't know someone that played for you, they know someone that played in the conference. So they start from a point of we know this is really high level basketball, and you don't have to convince them that Division III is good enough for them. And I think, at least from my experience, listen to other people in other states, they've got to convince kids that they should at least entertain it. And in Wisconsin, it's just not the case. And I think that spread, we see a lot in the Illinois suburbs. We see a lot in Minnesota, that even if we've got a girl on our team and a girl we're recruiting from Minnesota who wanted to reach out to us because they know how good our league is. And that was not necessarily something that was happening when I got here. But I think that all the webs and the interconnections of people, just make it way more special, and way more people, way more invested.
So here's my question about what you've learned, right? Like, so you got an 8-team league. Maybe the difference between first and eighth comes down to recruiting a little bit and the talent you've got in there. But the difference between second and seventh, third and sixth can just be a few little things that go one way or
Yeah.
another during the season. What
Yep.
have you learned that helps keep Oshkosh kind of on the top half instead of, slipping down a little bit as the years go along?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us individually is we need to keep our players for 4 years. And by keep, I mean give them a place that they want to stay, regardless of how much they're playing and what their stats look like. I think our successes come in, we've been able to recruit smaller classes than was the norm. I think when I got the job, I think in the late 2000, in the aughts, early tens, it was recruit a lot of people, keep the best players of that group, recruit a lot of people again, keep the best players of that group. And I think our team's consistency has come by recruiting 4 or 5 players that really fit together, that like each other, that want to be teammates, that want to play together, and keep tacking on 4 or 5 every year and make sure that those first 4 or 5 are still there for senior year and build a culture and a cohesion that can sustain losing all conference players and all Americans, and that the seniors were helping the freshmen get better. And I think that has been our best line to success. I think the difference in the league is so razor thin that the talent, as good as we think the players are when we get them, they end up so close to one another that the margins that we see are whatever I guess you define as basketball markers. For us, it's turnovers, taking good shots. But that's why I think the culture piece has become so important to us, because we're all going to end up with pretty similar talent. And I'm hoping mine likes playing together a little bit more and likes being here a little bit more and works a little bit harder in the summer because they're more invested. And that's kind of been our approach to trying to make sure that year after year we're in the mix. And even the years we've done it right, we've finished fourth and had to make a tournament run. But I think that's what's propelled us to be able to do it year after year.
So then we bring up the next step, right? Got the Final Four. You've got a bunch of Sweet 16s, winning 20 games every year. The WIAC women's basketball has not won a national championship since 2002. Stevens Point,
Yeah.
way back then. That's a long way back now. I do remember that, which makes me feel old. But what does it take for this league to get the next step? Obviously, I think 8 shots at the Final Four between then and now.
Yeah.
Nobody's quite pulled it off. What's it take for the next step?
It's a good question. I mean, I heard him talk about that way with football earlier this year. Obviously, our drought's a lot longer. I think when I first got back to the league and while I was at lacrosse the first time, the league was a lot more top heavy. I think 1.1 I was an undergrad. It was right before I started coaching, and that at that point it was always 2 or 3 schools that were firmly in those spots, and I think the talent had kind of coagulated in a couple of different places. And now we've got such good coaches. I mean, we had 5 teams make the tournament last year. And because of everything we just talked about and how interwoven it is and how everything is kind of spread out, taking the talent of 5 different tournament teams and spreading it out stretches things a little bit more thin. If we could take those 5 teams and put the best kids on 2 teams, I think we probably have a better chance to win the national title. So I think we undercut each other a little bit in that. But at the same time, we went 2 for 22 in the Final Four with a chance to go play for the national title and didn't play well enough and got out executed. So as much as there's probably some factors that spread things out, there's some schools in the East Coast that have done a really good job of getting big, strong, physical kids, and executing and out executing us and also playing a great league. So beating each other up is not a good enough excuse. So, I think as a league, we're at a spot where we've been knocking back on the door. Obviously, Whitewater opened the door. Stoutness got there last year. And we'd like to think the experience will help us, because I think we've all gone in long enough stretches where you finally get back there, and now there's a little bit of deer in headlight, like, whoa, this is a step bigger than we're used to. But at the same time, as we tell our recruits, if you can win this league, you do have a chance to compete at a national level. And I'd like to say it's as simple as, the best team that year has just got to play a little bit better. But at the same time, women's basketball has never been in a better spot, and the
Sure.
game's never been more talented. The players I coached 14 years ago would hate to hear me say it, but my team now would be so much better, so much more athletic, so much more skilled than those teams that went to Sweet 16s. So across the country, women's basketball has just become such a better sport. And I think teams, when I started, there was 12, 14 that legit could feel like they could win it. Now there's 30. And
Yeah.
maybe they're not in the top three, but they're legit teams that can go to an Elite Eight and make a run. So I think we're in a spot where you used to have to be really good. Now you have to be really, 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 really good. And I think us spreading some talent out, and then just not playing well enough in that moment probably has been a big difference. But I guarantee that there's 8 coaches in our league that are working really hard because they know if they get their team up to where we're capable of, we at least have a chance to talk about it.
Yeah, and I guess I'd be remiss if I don't ask you while you're here, having seen Lynn Hersey across the court and face up against her, she just seems to continually impress all of us watching. That she gets the most out of her players. Their success that they've had is kind of beyond what expectations were. What did you see, going up head to head against Lynn, and that really makes her a great coach?
Yeah, we got 2 years in a row, and I think they're as well a prepared team as we play. Like we like to think that we know what other teams are doing and that our players are ready for another team. And we ran into the East Coast version of us 2 years in a row. And I think they're cumulative +4 now or +5, 2 point game and a 2 or 3 point game. But they're so well coached. They know their stuff really well. I mean, they run a lot of different stuff, which makes them difficult to prepare for in a tournament setting because you just you don't have enough time. I mean, the amount of play calls and sets and stuff that they run and run well. And she does a great job of getting their best players the ball in the spots that they want it. And I'm not sure all of us do a good enough job of getting our players their best stuff, and Lynn does a really good job of if Hannah Martin likes this shot and this shot, she's got plenty of options to get Hannah that shot and that shot. And obviously they had transferred last year that helped them, but lost some other kids. Like they just do a great job of reloading, and a ton of respect for how they play. And we knew each other's stuff really well. So I was 49-47, because
Yeah.
it was a rock fight just trying to grind through your stuff. So but yeah, she does a great job of prep and just having their kids know exactly what they're looking for, and being okay with if it's not there, not feeling like they got to force it, and just going on to the next thing. So I'm not sure we have as much different as we probably think we do.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. You have these games at such a high level that are so close. And now your players have had, like you said, 2 years against Smith. Um, what are some of the little things, the conversations that they have coming out of those experiences? Obviously, they're disappointed that you come up on the wrong end of that, but obviously they're great learning opportunities. And what are some of the things, maybe at very minute, intricate levels that they're learning to help maybe go to the next level this year?
Yeah, I mean, our warm-up shirt this year says the little things aren't little things. And we look back on both of the last 2 years with Smith of as they would too. We had a shot that would have potentially won the game at the end, and then we made it. They would have looked back at the missed ball screen or the ball that got tipped out of bounds because they weren't quite in the right spot. So our takeaways both years with them has been you got to be a little bit better and a little bit sharper when the lights are on with very minute stuff that's not really fun to practice. And one of the things about Smith is they will expose anything that you do that's not perfect. And and we felt that a little bit this weekend. We paid for mistakes like Carroll and Chicago. If we made a mistake in our coverage, if we made a mistake in a matchup, they knocked down the shot. And against mediocre teams, you can get away with it. You'll make a mistake, but they'll miss a shot or they're just not quite good enough to knock it down. And you'll leave the game feeling like you played well when you did the exact same thing. And when you leave a game like Smith and you lose by 2 2 years in a row, you're watching the way you cut off a screen, or that you didn't hit a body on a ball screen, and or we didn't have 2 years ago, I didn't have a good enough sideline inbounds play at the end of the game. You know, we had one, they fouled us, and the next one I had wasn't good enough. And last year we came up with some better ones, and you know, we still didn't win the game, but it challenged you to look at yourself and figure out where your weaknesses are. So our takeaway from our players has been that the little things are big things. And my hope is, as we go on in this season, we've learned more again this weekend, that we go on in this season, that we don't wait until it's the end of the season and you have to have it to realize how important some of those things are. So that's the message we're trying to send this year, of making sure if someone's going to beat us, that it's going to happen because they really outplay us, and we make them have to beat us at the end.
Yeah, that's just been my takeaway, even from the opening weekend. That just so we have the NPI list now, so you have an actual ranking. I mean,
Right.
whether it's a ranking of teams, it's a ranking we can work on. But even a team that might be 100 spots lower than you is so much more capable of pouncing on those mistakes now than they were, maybe 5 or 10 years ago. And the depth of that, like, you really can't let up any games, especially a schedule like you guys play. Um, you got to be there for every moment.
Yeah, that's the part I think people, when you have a good team, people think it's like high school and half the teams you can just show up and beat. And it's definitely not that case for our league, but the line, like you said, the line goes down to 150 to 185 now, of teams that I think are capable of beating teams in the top 40 or 50. You know, especially on the women's side, where we're not going to dunk it. We're not going to jump over the top of people. Like, you want to have a kid that you can count on to make a basket around the rim, but there's only so many of those that end up at our level. So after that, like, you got to really execute and take care of the ball and take good shots and have something you can hang your hat on. And that's been the best part to me about women's basketball, is that line to beat the top 40 used to end at 75 or
Yeah.
65, and it's extended. And Scott Peterson would probably have some stats that tell me that's actually not the case, but
Right.
um which I love. But now I do think there's a lot of teams around the country. I mean, we just watched Ripon on our side beat two WIAC teams over the weekend on the road. There's a lot of really good teams in smaller leagues. There's a lot more depth in some of those smaller leagues, and everybody presents a challenge when they can do a lot of those little things well. And that's only made our game better. It's made people that never watched women's basketball before more interested in watching our team and other games. So that part's been exciting, but man, the margins are just small.
Well, I really appreciate the time that you gave me. It's more than I
Yeah,
have
for
your time
sure.
that I wanted to take.
Oh,
So
no
I
worries.
appreciate that. But
Yeah.
best of luck going forward,
Thanks,
and
Ryan.
really excited to watch the team.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan.